Inside Off-Road takes a look at the class battles of the Sun City 400 and a face-to-face with cricket legend Fanie de Villiers.
Once a year, the peaceful bushveld surroundings in which the magnificent Sun City Resort nestles in the Pilanesberg are disturbed by the roar of high-powered engines as the ABSA Off-Road Championship comes to town. This year, the Sun City 400 celebrated its 10th birthday with the race drawing huge crowds from Gauteng and surrounding areas in the Northwest Province.
Motor racing is entertainment, and the off-road fraternity makes a special effort to bring the fun of the fair to ABSA Championship races and provide a little of everything by way of entertainment for young and old. Brian Capper's Trick Motorcycle Show is always a hit, and a guest appearance in the Regent Racing team by cricket legend Fanie de Villiers added an extra element to this year's Sun City 400.
Well, in the first place, one don't get the real picture if you watch the show. To experience this kind of atmosphere is just unbelievable. Families, the kids, I've got little boys of 6, 7 years, 8 years asking me technical stuff of the vehicles, and obviously I'm a new oak on the block, you know, so it's amazing how the whole family and sponsors and everybody gets together. It's actually an outing. It's like visiting a theme park kind of atmosphere. So the people out there should actually come and have a look, just to experience it, just to bring the family out and have a look at the vehicles going through all the little dusty roads at 100 and 140 k's an hour. So it's absolutely electrifying, and I invite everybody out there to come and experience it.
Also causing a stir amongst enthusiasts and rival teams was a first public appearance for the new Regent Racing Nissan Navara. The new car makes its racing debut at the 4x4 Mega World 400 at Carnival City later this month.
It's a very exciting time for us. I mean, it's the best part of a 10-month project that's really come together. It's only phase one in the sense of the cars here. It's on presentation. The guys have done a wonderful job. You know, Stuart Thompson, Achim Bergman, and Graham Thornton have really done a superb job here. So yeah, phase one, the car's here, but you know, now it's probably phase two, which is the next probably 4 to 6 months of development to get her where we need it to be, but very exciting.
Building new off-road race cars is not an overnight exercise completed in one's garage. A second Nissan Navara is in the pipeline for the Regent Racing team, with the cars powered by the latest Nissan 5-litre engines, producing around 390 horsepower.
There's some really clever design that Achim has come up with, which we think is quite revolutionary. So we're looking forward to that. You know, a little bit on the front end. We're also kind of a collapsible front, which is a little bit different to the rest of the cars that have been designed. So time will tell how good those initiatives are.
The Pretoria team of Christian de Plooy and Henk Janse van Vieren confirmed their status as stars of the future with a maiden national championship win in the RFS BMW X3. With it came 20 championship points that moved them into 4th in the production vehicle championship. Team Castrol Toyota pair of Anthony Taylor and Chris Birkin were just over 2 minutes behind the RFS BMW, with a late puncture proving costly. The factory pair had a sizable advantage over Bloemfontein crew of Louw de Bruin and Rian Greiling, who produced a great result that saw them score their first podium finish in the Rubicon Racing Ford Ranger.
Fourth place and 12 points kept former champions Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst in the title hunt in the factory Ford Ranger, while Rubicon Toyota crew of Pekkie Labuskaghni and Rikus Erasmus fought a hard battle to finish in the top 5 and were around 3 minutes quicker than the consistent Mike Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson in a Regent Racing Nissan Navara that was missing a panel or two. A 15-minute penalty for a service park infringement dropped championship leaders Duncan Foss and Rob Howie down to 7th in the second Team Castrol Toyota Hilux. They were well clear of Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable in the second Ford Racing Ranger, and a season best took Henny de Klerk and Keith Solomon into 9th in the LA Sport Toyota Hilux, with the pair the last of the SP class finishers.
After a strong early showing, Hugo de Bruin and Henry Hugo fell by the wayside in the My Karen XL Toyota Hilux. And a miserable season continued for reigning champions Jannie Visser and Joks Leroux. They rolled out the race in the International Truck Toyota Hilux and were joined as spectators by veteran former South African champions Hannes Grobler and Henny Testege in the second of the RFS BMWs.
After prologue problems and a storming first lap display, Gary Berthold and Rolf Pitchford were to join the list of retirements in the Atlas Copco Toyota Hilux. There was also disappointment for Rustenburg crew Willem Vos and Werner Weiss. After a storming prologue performance in the Forces BMW X3, their race went pear-shaped.
A tough route taking its toll with Dion Venter and Ian Palmer amongst the casualties in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux, and much to everyone's disappointment, the South African Warranties Nissan Navara in the hands of Archie Rutherford and Fani de Villiers joining the growing list of retirements.
The first factory Ford Ranger ever built and now running in Transcore colours was in trouble, with driver Graham Leith hoping it was a false alarm.
I thought the wheel bearing had come loose. It seems to be okay, we'll check now.
After 5 rounds, Duncan Foss and Rob Howie lead teammates Anthony Taylor and Chris Birkin by 15 points in the SP class. Chris Visser, Jaapie Badenhorst and Christian Deploy, Henk Janse van Vieren are not out of the picture, but both crews are running out of events.
The Class D and E championships have produced some interesting racing this season, with Class D being led by an Australian resident. Cliff Weichelt commutes between Perth and South Africa to share the N1 4x4 Toyota Land Cruiser with Johan Smallberger, but knows all about the challenges the Sun City 400 offers.
Sun City, you've got to be careful. There's a lot of lurkers out there, so we've got to keep it on the road, and the dust is going to be a killer as well.
Class E leaders Dirk Pitter and Koos Claessens arrived at Sun City looking for a 4th win in 5 races.
We are very fortunate. Rowan Lamb and Gerald Leroy, we are very glad they are back. We nearly a full house, 5 Class E's. It will also the winner of the class this weekend will have a lot of points in the championship. And it's nice to have some competition, and everybody are hungry for a win.
Making a welcome return to action in the Rubicon Ford Ranger were Bloemfontein crew Gerald Leroux and Hendrik Badenhorst.
Dit was maar die entry level deel van die kampioenskap, en die ouens kan ry. Also, ek dink dis 5 inskrywings in die nasionale kampioenskap vandag. Ja, maar dit's lekker, dit's altyd pret.
The Donaldson prologue to determine grid position saw Class D develop into a tight family affair, with Louis Weichelt and Maret Besaidenout setting the pace. Just 3 seconds separated them from Weichelt's father Cliff and Johan Smallberger to set up an interesting race confrontation. The family theme continued with Mpumalanga brothers Johan and Werner Horn just over a minute behind the 2 N1 4x4 Toyota Land Cruisers. Not unexpectedly, Dirk Pitter and Koos Claessens dominated Class E and came in ahead of the young 4x4 Mega World teammates Jason Venter and Vincent van Alleman.
After missing the Toyota 1000 Desert Race, KwaZulu-Natal pair Rowan Lamb and Lyle Parker were back in action in a Ford Ranger, with the pair edging out Deirdre Cutting and debutant Quipper's Creer in the Transcore Toyota Hilux in the battle for 2nd and 3rd in Class E. The father and son combination of Jack and Cyril Oosthuizen were 4th in Class D in the Allen C Land Rover, with Gerald Leroux and Hendrik Badenhorst a little ring rusty in the Rubicon Ford Ranger.
The Sun City 400 was run over 2 laps of just under 160 kilometers, with Louis Weichelt and Maret Besaidenout quickly taking control of Class D. Late in the lap, the N1 4x4 Toyota Land Cruiser would be hampered by brake problems. There was no surprise at the front of the Class E field, where Dirk Pitter and Koos Claessens were still well in control, but there had been a change in Class D. Cliff Weichelt and Johan Smallberger had gone missing, and Johan and Werner Horn had taken over 2nd place in the Mullilan Toyota Land Cruiser. They were running ahead of Deirdre Cutting and Quibus Creer in Class E entry, with Jack and Cyril Oosthuizen hot on their heels in the LMC Land Rover, running in Class D. At the back of the field, Gerald Leroux and Hendrik Badenhorst were finding it heavy going in the Rubicon Ford Ranger and were nearly 30 minutes behind the leaders.
Horsepower of a different kind was also on view, while back on the route, Johan Griffian and Willem Marais were making steady progress in the Force-fueled Toyota Hilux. They were running ahead of Dana Vos and Johan Vlok in the Forces Toyota Hilux that started its racing life as a Class SP entry. Back at the race headquarters for a compulsory 15-minute stop after the first of 2 laps, service crews were busy repairing the brakes on the N1 4x4 Toyota Land Cruiser.
It's very rough, dusty, very dusty in the tights when there's a red dust. But the turf gives you a bit of gap to overtake and 4 guys to overtake. I lost brakes at the end of about 12 k's from the finish. And so we're just going to go out now and just try and finish the last lap.
Class D leaders Louis Weichelt and Maret Besaidenout were looking for their second win in a row in the N1 4x4 Toyota Land Cruiser, but were being given a run for their money by brothers Johan and Werner Horn in the Mulholland Toyota Land Cruiser. At the finish, only 19 seconds separated the 2 crews.
The Class E battle continued to be dominated by championship leaders Dirk Pitter and Koos Claessens, who were well on their way to a 4th win in 5 starts. Pitter and Claessens were never under pressure, and the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux had a lead of more than 30 minutes on the Ford Ranger of KwaZulu-Natal crew Rowan Lamb and Lyle Parker, who had a cushion of around 10 minutes over Deirdre Cutting and Cobus Creer in the Transcore Toyota Hilux.
While some local youngsters were showing off their 2-wheel skills, Johan Griffian and Willem Marais were grinding out their second finish in the points in Class E, while Jack and Sarel Oosthuizen were on their way to their 13th finish in 16 starts in the LMC Land Rover, with a father and son combination well clear of Dana Vos and Johan Vlok in the Fossi Toyota Hilux.
A non-finish hurt Cliff Weichelt and Johan Smalberger, with reigning champions Jack and Sarel Oosthuizen closing the gap at the top of the Class D standings to only 3.5 points.
In the Class E standings, the impressive Dirk Pitter and Koos Claessens widened the gap to Rowan Lamb and Lyle Parker, with the 2 crews now separated by 23 points.
Welcome to the City of London for the Olympic Games of 2012.
When you try your best but you don't succeed, when you get what you want but not what you need, stuck in river.
A world record from the greatest middle distance runner we've seen for a very long time.
Lights will guide you home.
The greatest of all time writes his way into the history books yet again.
And here comes Semenya lumbering along to come into second place there.
Does he get the world record, Vandenberg? He's done the lot.
What a performance. Celebrate. Well done, Cameron Vandenberg.
South Africa came from absolutely nowhere. It's one of the stories of the Games.
It's unbelievable. Stunning race. An even more stunning result.
Usain Bolt storming through. He takes it again. 9.64.
Lights will guide you home, and I will try to fix you.
Run on the Friday before an event, the Donaldson Prologue determines grid positions for the next day's race. The Prologue is run over a shortened route, and with times incorporated in overall race results, is essentially a race within a race. Earlier this season, the new start procedure came into play for the Donaldson Prologue, and the top 40 drivers in the production and special vehicle categories are now split into 4 groups based on a seeding system. This takes into consideration times from the previous 8 races. Competitors are now also divided into 4 groups of 10 that incorporate the top 20 seeds in the production vehicle and special vehicle categories, and start order among the groups is rotated at each race.
On the production vehicle front, the last 8 Donaldson Prologues have been dominated by the Team Castrol Toyota and RFS BMW teams. Between them, Castrol Toyota teammates Duncan Voss, Rob Howie and Anthony Taylor, Chris Birkin have won 5 times with a win apiece for RFS BMW crews Hannes Grobler, Henny Testega and Christian de Plooy and Henk Janssen van Vieren. The other wins went to Atlas Copco Toyota crew of Gary Berthold and Andre Vermeulen, but consistent results have lifted Ford Racing pair of Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst into the top 3 in the seeding order. The top 5 seeds can choose where they want to start on the prologue, and on the recent Sun City 400, Grobler and Testega found themselves first on the road.
With 5 Donaldson Prologue wins between them in the last 8 events, Motorride crew Evan Hutchison and Dani Stassen and Century Racing pair Colin Matthews and Alan Smith are first and second on the seeding list in the special vehicle category. Reigning South African champions Herman and Richard Solwald, current championship leaders Johan van Staden and Mike Lawrenson, and the husband and wife combination of Marius and Yolinda Fourie complete the top 5 seeds.
At the draw for the Sun City 400, Motorride crew of Hutchison and Stassen decided to buck the trend and choose to lead away the special vehicle contingent.
The nature of the sport makes the off-road community especially aware of the environment and nature conservation. The Motorride Group has thrown its weight behind the Rhino Force Conservation Group, with both Motorride cars of the Sun City 400 sporting new livery.
Motorride's put their initiative behind this Rhino Force, and the Rhino Force is basically a conservation group that's putting a drive together to recover some funds to try and save the rhino. So Motorride's backing them in quite a big way, and as you can see, we're carrying their logo on the vehicle. We've got the mascot here, they've got the full-size rhino, and they'll be here this weekend to represent Rhino Force, which is basically conservation of the rhinos.
An initiative to be supported, but the Sun City 400 also saw a return to action of quad racing superstar Wikus van Deventer, who put in an appearance as co-driver for Keith du Toit in the White Star Racing Bat.
Ek was baie gelukkig. Keith het my de tweede my gevra om saam met hom te kom ry hierso, en ja, na soveel jare se wegbreek van na quadste ry is dit my kans om weer 'n kar te kan ry.
Now a Botswana citizen, Sun City is on Van Deventer's doorstep, but his exploits on the Paris-Dakar Rally are the stuff of which legends are made.
O ja, hierdie race het verskriklik baie gery. Hierdie is amper soos my in die agterplaas wat ek ry. Ja, dit sou verskriklik lekker wees. Ja, ek het hierdie ding te veel jare gery in my lewe.
The special vehicle category on the Sun City 400 saw KwaZulu-Natal crew of Lance Trethui and Carl Wichmann take a maiden national championship victory in the LT Earth Movers Bat. Second place and 16 points was enough to take Johan van Staden and Mike Lawrenson to the top of the special vehicle championship, but the drive of the day came from Mark Corbett and Julian Hardy, who started from the back of the field and fought their way into the podium in the Century Racing CR4. A rearguard action carried Evan Hutchison and Dani Stassen into 4th in the Motorride Bat Venom, with Free State crew of Peter Rutvin and Leander Pinar continuing a good run of form with a solid 5th place in the Rubicon Bat.
There was a good result for a second KwaZulu-Natal crew in Clint Gibson and Gary Campbell in the Gibson Racing Porter. The pair came up with another workmanlike performance to finish comfortably ahead of Quinton and Cully Silvalt in the Elegant Fuel Bat. Behind the father and son combination, there was a first top 10 finish for Botswana driver Mogre Mabile, who had the experienced Zelda Niman sitting alongside him in the Team Scoot Zarko Light. Brothers Daniel and Lo Zili also produced one of their better performances in the Orange Works Porter to claim a top 10 finish, with Botswana pair Keith du Toit and Wikus van Deventer the last of the Class A classified finishers.
A tough route claimed some notable victims, amongst them the experienced father and son team of Nick and Ryan Harper, who haven't had much luck this season in the four-wheel drive Motorride Revo. They broke a side shaft, and a promising prologue result didn't translate into a good race for Northwest crew of Neil Meyer and Joseph Lewis in the Zarco Challenger. Meyer has a solitary point from the first race of the season to show for his labours.
After a solid start to the season with 3 finishes in succession, the husband and wife team of Marius and Yolanda Fourie have hit a rough patch in the PHB Porter. They had to throw in the towel for the second race in a row and have dropped off in the chase for the Special Vehicle Championship. After missing the Toyota 1000 Desert Race in Botswana, the father and son combination of Nardus and Louis Albert were early casualties at Sun City and were followed into retirement by the Cesarani Jimco of Steve Parker and Vincent Van Sale, who ran out of brakes. There was another non-finish for Dion Boyens and Cobus Fourie in one of the early specification back models. A second place on the Sun City event was enough to leapfrog Van Staden and Lawrenson ahead of Hutchison and Stassen, who finished 4th. Behind the 2 lead crews, there's also an intriguing situation, with just 1.5 points separating the next 3 teams.
The Sun City 400 saw a return to action by a couple of veteran drivers. After a year or 2 on the sidelines, Ernest Corbett, a former Class P winner on the Sun City 400, shared a drive in a Jimco with Guy Henley. Former SA champion Juan Moore did the navigating.
Yeah, I want to do a couple of races. I won't do the whole lot. You know, at 68, you have other things to do, like rest.
The Century Racing team fielded 3 cars, and in a family cameo, Corbett Sr. was also racing against his son Mark.
Yeah, he's got more power. I would say 20% more power at least. Gearbox is the same. The ratios are slightly different. His top end, he's got longer gears than I have. He probably does a higher speed than I do. I don't have the guts for that.
And from one veteran to another, with former Toyota 1000 Desert Race winner Rob Walk making a sentimental return to Sun City for another of his sporadic returns to racing in the Super Pave Aceco.
It is. It's really, very nice. It's a long time since I raced here. I think it's about 5 years ago. And it was all down in the other area. So this top area we did many, many years ago when Robbie Gordon came out from the States and raced Klaus Deggen's car, and we did that. I think it's a fairly similar route up there in the north. So it's going to be great. I think it's good. A lot of people haven't done it, so everyone's going to be in the same boat.
For an old-timer like Walk, who is one of 2 drivers to have won the grueling Toyota Desert Race in a single-seater, the biggest difference between racing then and now is to be found in the machinery.
Absolutely. I mean, it's high-tech vehicles that are here now. I mean, we can par with anywhere in the world. The cars are well prepped. The guys are fast. They take it very seriously. And it's exciting. I think it's good. It's good competition.
Back to the present, and the Class P prologue saw a close finish between Century Racing pair of Matthews and Smith and Kutsia Labuskaghni and daughter Sandra in the Race Sonic Zarco. Problems changing a wheel after picking up a puncture cost the Century Racing pair some time, and in the end only 3 seconds separated championship leaders Matthew and Smith and the Labuskaghnis. Behind the National Series regulars, Francois Conradi and Andrew van der Westhuizen were a surprise third in a bat, with the pair outpacing former Sun City 400 winner Richard Fuller and Dennis Murphy in the Regent Racing bat.
Ernest Corbett showed he has lost none of the skill that took him to a Sun City 400 win a couple of seasons ago. Corbett and former SA champion Juan Moore were only 3 minutes down on the leaders and had plenty to spare over newcomers Johan Visser and Koyas Marie in an aging raceco. Most of the prologue drama was reserved for John Telford and Jaco Swart, with the pair back in action in the Kelsamite bat after missing the Toyota Desert Race. All appeared to be going well when the pair pulled off the track.
Jake, it's something like a shotgun or something.
At that stage, there appeared to be nothing major for the crew to worry about, but that soon changed.
The fire extinguisher, the fire starter.
Alarm bells were caused by a fire in the wiring harness, and after completing the prologue, an eventful day ended for the pair when they incurred the wrath of race officials for speeding in an open section.
Class B Championship leaders Colin Matthews and Alan Smith were quick out of the starting blocks on the first of the two loops that made up the race, with dust a problem throughout the field. Caught unawares in the thick dust, Matthews and Smith narrowly missed a confrontation with a gate, only to have further progress halted a few kilometres down the road when they picked up their second puncture of the morning.
After two punctures, Matthews and Smith had run out of spare tyres. Not that it mattered, because their race came to a premature end when a wheel broke off and handed the Century Racing crew their first non-finish of the season. It was a major disappointment for Matthews and Smith and handed the Class P lead to Richard Fuller and Dennis Murphy, who had enjoyed an uneventful morning in the Regent Racing Bat. With Colin Matthews and Alan Smith out of the picture, Coetzee and Sandra Labuschagne moved up a notch in the Raconic Zarco, with the pair running around 9 minutes adrift of Fuller and Murphy.
Racecam footage from the Labuschagne Zarco amply illustrates the visibility problems crews faced in the dust and mid-morning sun.
Driving duties in the Century Racing Gymco had been taken over by Guy Henley, who was now partnering Joan Moore. The demise of teammates Colin Matthews and Alan Smith had also moved them up a slot, with the Century Racing pair comfortably ahead of John Telford and Jaco Swart. The calcimite bat was seemingly none worse for the wiring harness fire the previous day, and steaming along behind them were Rob Walker and Jeremy Wood, who had wads of time to make up after a nightmare prologue.
At the designated service park at the end of the first of the 255-kilometre loops that made up the race, Richard Fuller and Dennis Murphy were in a comfort zone.
Dusty, I mean, it's what you expect. Hell of a dusty. The cars, you can't get within 100 metres, you know, so the screamers are a bit of a problem. Great route, it's very quick. I mean, Sun City's always been renowned to be very fast. But we picked up some places. I believe we're lying first P at the moment, in fourth frame. So we're having a good run. I'm thoroughly enjoying the race. But yeah, that dust is always going to be a tough one in off-road. It's just what it is. Enjoying it though.
It doesn't take long for the status quo to change in off-road racing, and it was all happening in Class P. Richard Fuller and Dennis Murphy were in trouble, and the ever-steady Coetzee and Sandra Labuschagne found themselves in the lead in the Raconic Zarco. Guy Henley and Joan Moore had also overtaken the Regent Racing Bat, and John Telford and Jaco Swart were an unlikely third in the calcimite bat, given the dramas they had endured on the Donaldson prologue.
For Richard Fuller and Dennis Murphy, the problem was a damaged rear suspension, with the pair nursing the Regent Racing Bat home at almost walking pace. It was good enough for fourth place and valuable championship points, with Rob Walk and Jeremy Wood still running strongly but unable to make up ground after their prologue woes.
Despite their Sun City 400 woes, Matthews and Smith still hold a comfortable 23-point lead in the Class P Championship. Only 9 points now separate the next three crews.
The next event on the ABSA Off-Road Championship calendar is the 4x4 Mega World 400 at Carnival City on the East Rand. Catch all the action right here on Supersport, your world of champions.